The morning, the sky over Germany turned white with contrails and smoke. The men of the B-17 Iron Bell believed they were flying into hell for the last time. The winter air was thin and diamond hard, the kind that made engines groan and metal snap if strained too long. Captain Samuel Pierce held the controls with a steady grip, though the tremor in his right hand betrayed two things he refused to admit to anyone: fatigue and fear. His bomber was part of a formation bound for a ball-bearing plant deep in German territory, and the Luftwaffe had been especially relentless that week. They all knew what it meant the moment they saw the black spires of flak rising like twisted, reaching fingers from the earth. This mission was going to cost someone their life. The first burst struck just beneath the wing groot, a blooming punch of fire that rattled the entire frame. Pierce heard metal scream and felt the bomber lurch violently. "We're hit." His co-pilot, Lieutenant Ray Donovan, shouted, "Hydraulic pressure dropping?" In the back, Staff Sergeant Dalton Daly Reeves, the waist gunner, steadied himself against the sudden jolt as smoke curled through the fuselage. The oxygen system cut out on the port side, and the left inboard engine sputtered like a dying heart. "Feathering engine 2. Pierce yelled, but the switch refused to engage. The engine coughed black smoke, shaking the airframe with each failing rotation. Then the flak came again closer, angrier. A burst tore open the nose, sending shards of plexiglass flying into the navigator's table. Another clipped the tail, sending shudders through the entire spine of the aircraft. The formation around them tightened, trying to offer protection. But Iron Bell was slowing, falling behind like a wounded animal dropping from the herd. And nothing attracted predators like a lone lagging B-17. Pierce knew the Luftwaffe would come now. He steadied the plane, fighting the controls, and spoke into the interphone with a calm he didn't feel. "Gunners, keep your eyes sharp. They'll be on us any second." Sergeant Reeves looked out his small window and felt dread coil in his stomach. He had seen fighters before. He had shot at them, hit some, maybe downed one. But today something inside the bomber felt different to many injuries, too many sounds of dying machinery. The bomber felt like a man who had already surrendered but simply hadn't collapsed yet. The call came from the tail gunner, Private Alan Mackey. "Skipper, we got company. Single fighter, looks like a BF-109. Maybe 2 o'clock low." His breathing changed. "He isn't diving yet. He's just watching us." Pierce swallowed. A lone fighter stalking a cripple was the worst sign. The German had time, fuel, altitude, advantage, everything. The bomber had nothing but willpower and the ghosts riding inside with them. The fighter climbed slightly, positioning itself for the classic kill shot. All he had to do was squeeze the trigger, and the burning fortress would fall in seconds. Pierce expected it. Donovan expected it. Everyone did. Then something strange happened. The fighter did not fire. Instead, the BF-109 slid closer, flying almost level with the crippled fortress. The two machines drifted side by side, one deadly and sleek, the other trembling and bleeding smoke into the winter sky. The German pilot was close enough for Reeves to see the man's goggles. The line of his jaw, the soft frost on the canopy frame. It felt as though time slowed, like the sky itself held its breath. "Is he saluting us?" Donovan whispered. The German lifted his hand from the throttle and raised it to his helmet, giving a small, deliberate nod, a gesture, not of victory, but of recognition, almost respect. Then the 109 eased even closer, wagging its wings slowly. As if urging them to follow, Reeves blinked in disbelief. "What the hell is he doing?" "Guiding us," Pierce said, voice cracking. "He's showing us a heading. Southwest." The German pilot then pointed downward, an unmistakable signal. A suggestion, perhaps a plea. "You are dying. Turn back. Save your men." Pierce felt every emotion at once. Anger, gratitude, grief, confusion. He'd spent the war hating the men in those fighters. Hating them for the friends they'd killed, the fortresses they'd torn apart. Yet here was one, choosing not to finish them. "Choosing mercy, Skipper?" Donovan whispered. "If we don't peel off soon, we're going to stall out and crash in the middle of Germany." Pierce nodded, glancing at his bleeding controls. "All right," he said softly into the interphone. We're turning. Everybody brace. As the bomber rolled gently away from the formation, the WW2 stayed with them, like a shepherd guiding a broken animal out of a killing field. The German pilot kept a careful distance, but never left their side. Once or twice, he dipped his wing, warning them of approaching flak pockets. Other times, he drifted lower, scouting ahead. The bomber's remaining engines growled and coughed, but they kept turning. In the ball turret, Corporal James Holt whispered, "He's saving us. A damned German ace is saving us." For 20 long minutes, the two aircraft limped across the sky together. Then, nearing the edge of German territory, the horizon darkened with approaching American fighters sweeping in for their escort leg. The Germans saw them at the same moment the Americans did. The P-47s were coming fast. The German pilot faced the bomber one last time. He raised his hand again in a small farewell salute, an acknowledgement of shared humanity in a war trying every day to crush it. Then he banked sharply, peeling away and diving into a cloud bank before the Thunderbolt spotted him. Pierce exhaled shakily. "He could have ended us in seconds." "But he didn't," Donovan said. "He gave us a chance." The bomber limped westward under American escort, losing altitude steadily. By the time they crossed into Allied airspace, the Iron Bell was barely flying, shaking like a man walking on shattered bones. Pierce aimed for the closest emergency strip, calling out to the crew, "Prepare to land." And pray. They touched down hard. One wheel collapsed. The bomber skidded sideways, tearing a trail through the muddy runway before slamming to a stop. Engines sputtered. Smoke billowed. But the men were alive. Hours later, after the medics checked them over, Reeves climbed out of the wreck and looked east toward the sky, where their unlikely escort had vanished. He whispered. Pierce stepped beside him, hands in his pockets. Maybe he saw men, not enemies. Maybe he was tired of killing. Or maybe he knew we were already finished and didn't want more ghosts riding his shoulders. Reeves nodded slowly. "We owe him our lives," Pierce said quietly, "and we'll never know his name." But the men carried that moment with them to the mess tent, to the debriefing room, through the remaining missions of the war. A memory of a German ace who offered mercy when no one expected it, of a salute between two pilots who, for a brief minute in the winter sky, rose above the war that demanded they be enemies, and long after the guns of Europe fell silent. That story lived on in the voices of the survivors, told softly, reverently, like a reminder that even in the worst of humanity, someone can still choose grace.
The manual says to check the fuel line first.
Just try to rest, you're doing fine.
We need to monitor this closely.
Hand me that suture kit.